it going, Raider Nation? It's JT coming at you with another episode of the Raidercast, your podcast for everything silver and black. And in this video, we're going to be talking about the red and black and the XFL, talking about the Vegas Vipers opening weekend, the XFL's opening weekend, going over my thoughts about the team, more specifically the Vegas Vipers, obviously, Fangangs, and then talking about the power rankings I have, and just talking about all the teams in general, just to give you guys my thoughts on the first week, on the team, on all the teams in general, and how I think the league is going to do this season. To start things off, I am going to talk about just general thoughts. I thought all the games were interesting except for one, which was the blowout loss, Roughnecks versus Guardians, but I'll talk about a little bit more about that later. But overall, all the games were interesting. There was some bad football, but also some really good football. It's very much similar play that we saw in the USFL. I thought the XFL had way lower scoring games. The USFL definitely had more higher scoring games or even more blowouts. But again, this has only been 4 games so far, and there was 1 out of 4 games being a blowout. And there realistically could have been all the games been blowouts except for teams collapsing. That's another issue, is that there seemed to be a lot of teams collapsing, which is weird. A lot of late comebacks. There was 2 games that were late comebacks, and 3 games where there was a team up by double digits that ended up losing in the end. So I don't know if that's just football, weird XFL rules, the 3-point conversions, the 4th and 15s and stuff like that. But I felt like there was a little too much of that, and I felt it was kind of weird. It felt like one of the games, like the Brahmas Battlehawks game, I felt was really weird. The Defenders game, Dragons game, the stat lines were weird because DC got outgained on almost every measurable category and still won by 4. And then the announcers were talking way too much about betting for my liking. They were talking about the over and the under way too much. I think all the games hit the over, but barely. So the betting lines, the money lines were good, but they shouldn't be focusing on the betting lines during a game, because then it just makes it feel really weird. Maybe that's just me, but overall, solid games, interesting games, even though my team lost a terrible collapse. It was still exciting even at the end. I actually stopped streaming because I was like, okay, there's no way we win this, and we almost came back to tie it in the last minute, but we didn't. So that'll lead me into the first talking point, which is the Vipers losing to the Arlington Renegades 22-20 after having a 14-3 halftime lead. I thought that this was going to be not a blowout per se, but I thought it was a guaranteed win. Our defense was smothering. The issue was, though, I was like, well, our defense has been playing really, really well. Our offense hasn't been doing enough. We had 2 explosive plays that led to touchdowns, or just one really good drive to start the game, and then 1 explosive play from Jeff Badette, who's my offensive player of the game, because he just had a really good game. He had 6 catches, 81 yards for 13.5 per catch, 2 touchdowns, and a long of 39. He caught, 66% of his passes, which is solid, or targets, I should say, but I mean, some of those passes were not good. One of them was a pick 6, actually. And, Sinquis Sweetening had a solid game, 3 catches for 64 yards and a touchdown. The touchdown late that led to us getting it close at the end. And Geronimo Allison was solid on third down and stuff like that. I thought that Martavis Bryant didn't have as much of an impact as I thought. And same thing with Allison. They had impact at the beginning, but Martavis Bryant didn't really. Geronimo had more impact at the beginning of the game. Martavis Bryant was targeted 9 times with only 4 catches for 28 yards. Kind of disappointing. His longest was 10. Matthew Sexton had 2 catches for 27 with a long of 18. I thought that Jeff Badette is going to be our wide receiver 1, or at least our big playmaker guy. And then our run game was terrible. We had a combined 1.7 yards per carry. Our best running back was Sinquis Sweetening, who's a wide receiver with 2 carries for 6 yards and 3 yards per attempt. DeAndre Torrey had only got 3 carries. Michael Carrizosa, which was the punter, had 1. and John Lovett had 4 for 10 yards. Kind of terrible. I think we need to roll more with DeAndre Torrey. Rod Smith had 5 carries for 1 total yard. I thought that our O-line did terrible with run blocking, which is a big issue, but I don't think our running backs did that much better. I was expecting more from our running backs, in all honesty, especially the combination of Rod Smith being like an NFL veteran. DeAndre Torrey, I thought, did really well in his last year of college. Stuff like that, I just felt like we should have had better run game. And I think if we did, we would have been able to win the game because we would have been able to run the clock down a bit better than we did. Because Luis Perez, although he had 22 attempts, completions with 36 attempts, 249 yards, 6.9 yards per throw. He had 3 touchdowns, but he also had 2 interceptions, and both were pick sixes. They swung the game completely. Like even if they ended up only with like just as picks, it would have been not as bad. But he threw 2 pick sixes. He literally lost us the game. Terrible quarterbacking in the second half, just awful. Literally the reason why we lost there's pretty much one person to blame, and it's Luis Perez. He played like shit in the second half, and it's the big reason why we lost. Obviously the reason why we even came back, but I feel like it was too little too late. He took 3 sacks for 13 yards and a huge sack on the 2-point conversion, which you can't do, which was very disappointing, and even got sacked, I think, on the 4th and 14 attempt. So he had 2 terrible sacks and two big spots. He had 2 terrible interceptions. But our defense is in my opinion, besides Jeff Badette, should be the talk of the town. We had a total of 3 sacks, 55 total tackles, with Laron Stokes having 5.5, tackles, which I don't know what that means. I don't know if you have a half a tackle, I guess assists. We had 1.5 sacks, 3.5 TFLs, forced fumble from Maximilian Roberts, who also had a sack. You have DJ Calhoun having a lot of tackles as well, 6 tackles. CJ Avery, 5.5 tackles with 1 TFL and an interception. He was a playmaker. Our defense in general was smothering. The Renegades had no offense. They scored 6 offensive points. 6. That is incredible, and we lost by 2. We were up 14-3. We only allowed a field goal. It was 0 for 4 in the red zone by the end of the game, and we still lost because of those pick sixes, because of the Renegades defense. I think the Renegades defense is definitely very good, but I also think that our offense just was not enough, and I think that Luis Perez was a big reason why, and also the run game not being good enough, because I think the wide receivers we have are plenty good enough. They can definitely change a game. Jeff Badette can change a game. Martavis Bryant, I think, can at least be solid. Geronimo Allison, I can't say his name. Sink Sweetening should be much better. It should be solid too as a deep threat with 21.3 yards per catch, which is crazy. But we need to get Brett Huntley in here, man. We need Brett Huntley, and if we do, I think that'll end up making us better. And we're going against DC next week, which should be a very, very good game. It is the first division rival opponent that we have so far. So it should be a very fun game, and it's in Vegas. So if you're in Vegas, definitely go check out that game, see if you can get tickets. I think it's sold out, but you can always try and get that day tickets and maybe get them for cheaper than they would have been. But I highly suggest you go, or at least watch the game. It's going to be on Saturday night I believe it's on ESPN at 7 p.m. So definitely watch that game. But yeah, enough about the Vipers. Very disappointing loss. I think Rod Woodson did a solid job of getting the defense really good. I just think we need a better quarterback. And I think Brett Hundley is it, and we need to play him next week. If we run with Luis Perez again, I'm going to be very upset and worried about the rest of the season. And honestly worried about the coaching staff for choosing Luis Perez over Brett Hundley. But in my opinion, I think Brett Hundley should be named the starter come next week. Now, let's talk about the power rankings I have. At number 1, we have the Houston Roughnecks, which I was alluding to earlier. They just straight up dominated the Orlando Guardians, who are also the worst team in the league. So I don't know if that's just it's either the Roughnecks are really, really good or the Guardians are just that bad, and I think the Guardians are just that bad. They couldn't even make it a game. They sucked. Paxton Lynch is terrible. I don't know why they started him. They needed to start literally anyone else that they have on their bench over Paxton Lynch. Paxton Lynch is just a bad quarterback. He sucks. He's absolutely terrible. But the Roughnecks, coached by Wade Phillips, are still undefeated in the XFL. They have not lost a game as an XFL team all the way back in 2020. They were, I believe, like 6-0 or something like that, or 5-0. But now they are 6-0 or 7-0, whichever one it is. And it should be interesting to see which team will be the first team to upset them. But just that game, it was just bad. 33-12 being the final score. I mean, like I said, Paxton Lynch, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, only 136 passing yards. His backup, who came in later in the game, 12 for 18, 142 yards, and 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. One of them was a late game. Just throw it up there. But Paxton Lynch took 4 sacks. So did Normandy. Took 3 sacks, but either that's the O-line or just Lynch is terrible. I think it's just Lynch is terrible. Their run game was really good. They should have stuck with the run. Receivers, solid. Jamiel, really good. He had that 51-yard bomb of a touchdown by Normandy to get them back into the game, but it didn't mean anything towards the end. The Roughnecks, Borghi looks really good. Four receptions for 32 yards, and he also had 8 carries for 42 yards and a touchdown. He looks like he could be their Christian McCaffrey type of guy. He just looks really, really good. Now, talking about the defenders, like I said earlier, they got outgained by the Sea Dragons in almost every statistical category except for first down rushing and first down penalties. Like everything else, the rush attempts, they were more like they had better rushing, but everything else was in favor of Sea Dragons. They got more turnovers though. Sea Dragons had more fumbles, so that was the big reason why they lost. Obviously, a game-losing interception on the 2-yard line, literally lost in the game. They had the chance to win and quite literally fumbled it away. Ben DiNucci looked really good. 54 pass attempts so far, only 282 yards is kind of not great. You want to see those attempts come down, but some of the throws he made were pretty incredible. That Josh Gordon, like little shovel pass touchdown thing that he did was really, really good. Josh Gordon looked dominant. 6 receptions, 74 yards, a touchdown. Really, really good receiving, but everyone else was kind of not great on their teams. Josh Gordon's like their receiver. You have rushing, not good rushing. Morgan Ellison was their best rusher, 3 carries for 17 yards. Brendan Knox only had 31 yards on 11 carries, which is not good, but he had a touchdown, so give and take. But Ben DiNucci, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. You want to cut down those interceptions. He also had the game-losing fumble, so he is definitely a boom or bust type of quarterback right now. But yeah, I think he needs to be better. I just think that the Dragons were the better team, but they ended up losing. DC had a really good defense, and better rush attack. Like they had, let's take a look at their rushing. They just had more yardage, 84 yards versus the Sea Dragons 51, so it wasn't even that much. They didn't even have like a better rusher really, except for Armstead, 8 carries for 30 yards. That's just not really that good. Their receivers were just not good. Like they had a total of 86 yards passing, or 93 yards passing. 86 from Jordan Teamo. Teamo was washed as fuck, by the way. 1 interception, 8 for 19 for 86 yards, 4.5 per throw. Fucking terrible. Well under 50% completion percentage, which is terrible. The receivers are bad. The running backs aren't great. Their defense is good. Not as good as other teams though. They're just about the same as every other defense so far. DC, I'm not impressed by. I put them at 2 because of their defense, I guess. But the Battlehawks and Renegades also didn't really impress me. I guess the Renegades a bit more. But again, it was just their defense. their offense sucked. Battlehawks, late game heroics to win the game. They sucked the first 3 quarters, and Brahmas fucking died. Worse than the Vipers did, so that's why they're at 7. Guardians suck ass. And Sea Dragons, like I said, they just fumbled the game away. Realistically, I would put Sea Dragons maybe at 2, because the other teams, like between 1 and 8, I don't know who the fuck is good or bad. I think the Vipers might even be better than their record says, obviously, because they're 0-1. It's only the first week, so it's hard to tell who's good, who's bad. But these are the power rankings. Basically, winners are 1 through 4, losers are 5 through 8. But there's definitely only one really, really good team in the Roughnecks and one really, really bad team in the Guardians. But we'll see how it shakes out next week as more games are played. So, if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. I greatly appreciate all 384 of you who are subscribed to this channel. I hope you guys enjoyed XFL weekend. Let me know down in the comments how you guys feel about this Vegas team who are playing exactly like the Raiders. So maybe we're just cursed. Maybe the Vegas football teams are just cursed at this point. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the XFL and continue to watch. I know I will be. Anyways, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out, Raider Nation, and peace out, Fang Gang.